My beloved child, stop scrolling and remain here for a moment, because what you are about to hear has not reached you by accident. Something has been waiting to meet you in this exact hour, and although your mind may be telling you that this is only another message, your heart already knows there is something different moving beneath these words. Do not rush away. Do not let distraction steal this moment from you. There is a truth gathering courage in the heart of the person connected to you, a truth they have carried in silence for far longer than you realize, and tonight the weight of that silence has become heavier than their fear of speaking. They have reached a point where they can no longer pretend everything is fine. They can no longer hide behind distance, ordinary conversations, unanswered questions, or carefully chosen words. Somewhere deep within them, a sentence keeps repeating with growing urgency, I cannot carry this guilt another day. You deserve the truth. Pause here, beloved, because the guilt they are carrying may not be what you first imagine. It is not simply the guilt of one mistake, one conversation, or one decision. It is the guilt of knowing they allowed you to question your own worth while they remained silent. It is the guilt of watching you search for answers they already possessed. It is the guilt of knowing that your heart sensed something changing, while they continued to act as though nothing had happened. They saw the confusion in your spirit, even from a distance. They felt the moment you began to wonder whether you had imagined the connection, whether you had cared too deeply, whether you had believed in something that was never real. And every time you doubted yourself, something inside them whispered, tell them. Tell them before the silence becomes a wound that cannot be explained. But they did not tell you. Not yet. They convinced themselves that waiting would make the truth easier. They believed another day would give them more courage. They thought time would arrange the perfect words, the perfect moment, the perfect explanation. Yet the longer they waited, the more complicated the truth became. Silence did not protect either of you. It only built a wall between what was felt and what was spoken. It turned a simple confession into a mountain. It transformed one hidden fear into many unanswered questions. And now your soulmate is standing emotionally at the edge of that mountain, realizing there is no peaceful way forward except through honesty. Stay with this message, because there is a reason you have recently felt an unusual heaviness that did not completely belong to you. There were moments when your mood shifted without explanation. Moments when you suddenly remembered them after trying not to. Moments when a quiet ache appeared in your chest, not sharp enough to frighten you, but deep enough to make you stop and wonder. You may have called it nostalgia. You may have dismissed it as overthinking. You may have told yourself to move on, become stronger, or stop giving energy to something uncertain. But in the unseen emotional space between two deeply connected people, unspoken truth creates a vibration of its own. Their guilt has been pressing against your intuition. Their unspoken confession has been knocking at the door of your awareness. You sensed it because your spirit was not confused, even when your mind was. Your mind asked, why would they remain silent if they truly cared? Your spirit answered, because sometimes people hide most from the person whose opinion matters most. Your mind asked, why did they make things look so ordinary? Your spirit answered, because they were terrified that one honest conversation could change everything. Your mind asked, why do I still feel there is something unfinished? And your spirit could only whisper, because the final truth has not yet been placed in your hands. Beloved, this is where the story begins to turn. Your soulmate has not been carrying guilt merely because they failed to communicate. They have been carrying guilt because there was a specific moment when they almost told you everything, and then chose fear instead. That moment has returned to their memory again and again. They remember where they were. They remember what time of day it was. They remember the words they typed, erased, rewrote, and finally never sent. They remember looking at your name and feeling that one small act of courage could bring relief to both of you. But then another voice entered their mind, the voice of insecurity, pride, and imagined rejection. It told them, not now. Wait until you know how they feel. Wait until you are certain. Wait until you can control the outcome. So they waited. And the outcome moved beyond their control. What they did not understand then was that truth delayed does not remain unchanged. It begins to gather consequences. Questions multiply. Misunderstandings grow roots. People make choices based on incomplete information. Hearts protect themselves. Distance becomes familiar. And before anyone realizes what has happened, two people who once felt emotionally close begin behaving like strangers who still secretly recognize each other. Your soulmate watched this happen. They saw you become quieter. They noticed the shift in your energy. They felt you pulling back, not because your feelings disappeared, but because your dignity began protecting what your hope could no longer carry alone. They may not have admitted it, but your withdrawal shook them. It forced them to confront something they had avoided for too long. They had believed your presence would always remain available. They had assumed your patience was endless. They mistook your emotional loyalty for certainty that you would never walk away. And when they finally sensed that you were learning how to live without the answer they owed you, the guilt became impossible to ignore. This is why they have been restless. This is why their thoughts return to you when the world becomes quiet. This is why ordinary moments suddenly feel incomplete. They can laugh with others and still feel the absence of your understanding. They can stay busy and still hear the echo of what they should have said. They can tell themselves they made the practical choice, the safe choice, the mature choice, yet somewhere inside, their heart refuses to call silence wisdom. Their heart knows silence was fear wearing the mask of caution. And now that mask is breaking. Do not skip this moment, because something larger is waiting beneath the guilt. Your soulmate is not only afraid that you will be hurt by the truth. They are afraid that you will finally understand how deeply they were affected by you. They have spent so much time trying to appear composed that the real confession feels almost unbearable. The truth is not only about what happened around them. It is about what happened inside them when they met you, when they began to recognize you, when they realized your presence was reaching places in them that no one else had touched. They did not expect that. They expected attraction to be simple. They expected affection to be manageable. They expected to enjoy your presence without having their inner world rearranged by it. But you became a mirror. Around you, they began seeing their own fears more clearly. Your honesty exposed their habit of hiding. Your tenderness revealed how guarded they had become. Your patience showed them how impatient they were with their own healing. Your ability to feel deeply made them aware of how often they escaped from emotion. This connection did not only comfort them. It confronted them. And that confrontation frightened them more than they ever allowed you to see. There was a moment when they realized they could no longer speak to you casually without feeling the seriousness underneath. Every small interaction began carrying meaning. Every pause felt important. Every change in your tone made them wonder whether you had finally seen through them. They started reviewing conversations after they ended. They remembered things you said that you assumed they had forgotten. They noticed details about you they never mentioned. They began imagining what it would feel like to be fully known by you, and instead of moving closer, they became overwhelmed. They had wanted love. They had not expected love to ask for truth. This is the source of their guilt. They knew you deserved clarity, but they offered mystery. They knew you deserved reassurance, but they offered inconsistency. They knew you deserved an honest explanation, but they gave you fragments and expected your heart to assemble them into peace. They hoped you would somehow understand what they were too afraid to say. They hoped your intuition would translate their silence. But even the strongest connection cannot thrive forever on unspoken meaning. Heaven saw the nights when you questioned yourself. Heaven saw you replaying moments, searching for what you had done wrong. Heaven saw you trying to become less emotional, less hopeful, less affected, because you believed perhaps your depth had been the problem. But hear this clearly. Your depth was not the problem. Your sincerity was not the problem. Your desire for truth was not the problem. The problem was that they had not yet developed the courage to meet your honesty with their own. You were not asking for perfection. You were asking for something real. You were not demanding that they have every answer. You were asking them not to make you feel foolish for sensing what was already present. You were not trying to control their path. You simply needed to know whether the connection existed outside your imagination. And they knew it did. That is the truth they cannot carry in silence any longer. They knew. They knew there was something powerful between you. They knew your presence affected them. They knew their distance was confusing you. They knew their actions were contradicting what their heart felt. And still, they said nothing. There is a memory haunting them now, one they have tried to bury beneath practical explanations. It was a moment when you gave them an opening. Perhaps you asked a simple question. Perhaps you said something vulnerable. Perhaps your eyes held theirs for 1 second longer than usual. Perhaps you sent a message that offered them the chance to speak honestly without pressure. Whatever form it took, they recognized the doorway. They stood before it. They almost walked through. Then fear pulled them back. Since that moment, they have wondered what would have happened if they had chosen courage. Would the distance have formed? Would you have felt so alone? Would they have lost so much time? Would the two of you be standing in a completely different chapter now? These questions follow them when they are alone. But there is another layer, beloved, and this is where the revelation grows deeper. The guilt is not only connected to what they failed to tell you about their feelings. It is also connected to something they allowed you to believe. They let you believe that their silence meant indifference. They let you believe that the connection mattered more to you than to them. They let you believe they could walk away without looking back. None of that was true. Their silence was not the absence of emotion. It was emotion without direction. Their distance was not proof that you meant nothing. It was proof that you meant enough to frighten the part of them that had built a life around emotional control. Their calm appearance was not peace. It was performance. Behind that performance, they were struggling with a decision they had never faced before. Whether to remain the person they had always been, protected but incomplete, or become honest enough to risk being changed by love. You may wonder why someone would risk losing a meaningful connection simply to avoid vulnerability. But understand this, people do not always fear losing love as much as they fear being seen needing it. Your soulmate has spent years proving to themselves that they can survive without depending too deeply on anyone. They learn to carry disappointment quietly. They learn to appear fine. They learn to keep important emotions private until the emotions passed. But what they felt for you did not pass. It changed shape. It went underground. It became restlessness. It became comparison. It became the strange emptiness they felt after conversations with others. It became the instinct to look for you in rooms where you were not present. It became the urge to check whether you were okay, followed by the fear of revealing that they still cared. It became guilt. Their guilt grew each time they considered reaching out and then stopped themselves. Each delay made the next step harder. Each moment of pride built another layer over the confession. Yet your absence kept exposing what their pride could not repair. They began noticing that the world had not become easier without the truth. It had become quieter in the wrong way. The silence they once believed would protect them began to feel like punishment. And now, something has happened inside them. Not an external disaster. Not a frightening event. Not anything you should fear. It was a private awakening, a moment of emotional clarity so sharp that they could no longer hide from themselves. Perhaps it happened late at night when distractions disappeared. Perhaps they heard a song that carried your memory. Perhaps someone asked them a question about love and they could not answer honestly without thinking of you. Perhaps they saw another person choosing courage and realized how long they had chosen avoidance. Whatever triggered it, the realization was immediate. They saw the entire situation from your side. For the first time, they did not focus on how difficult honesty felt for them. They focused on what their silence had felt like for you. They imagined you waiting for clarity. They imagined you blaming yourself. They imagined you trying to move forward while carrying unanswered questions. They imagined you smiling in front of others while privately wondering why someone who seemed connected to you could become so distant. And something inside them broke open. Not into despair, but into responsibility. They finally understood that feeling guilty is not the same as making things right. Missing you is not the same as honoring you. Thinking about the truth is not the same as telling it. Loving someone silently may feel profound to the person remaining silent, but to the person waiting, silence often feels like absence. This realization has changed the energy around them. They are no longer asking, "What if the truth makes me uncomfortable?" They are beginning to ask, "What if hiding the truth costs me the person I was meant to be honest with?" Do not rush past that question, beloved. It is transforming them. They are beginning to understand that their confession is not only about recovering a connection. It is about recovering their own integrity. They do not want to remain someone who hides behind ambiguity. They do not want to keep building a life where their deepest truths are always postponed. They do not want to wake one day and realize they protected themselves so perfectly that nothing real could reach them. Your connection has become the point where their old patterns can no longer continue unnoticed. And this is why your role in their life has been larger than romance alone. You awakened the part of them that wants to live truthfully. You reminded them that emotional courage is not weakness. You showed them that being understood is possible, but only when one is willing to be known. You did not do this through pressure. You did it simply by being real. Your presence asked them a question without words: will you continue hiding, or will you become who your heart is asking you to be? For a long time, they avoided answering. Now the answer is rising. But before they speak, they are wrestling with one final fear: that the truth has arrived too late. They wonder whether you have already closed the door. They wonder whether your heart has become unavailable. They wonder whether someone else now occupies the emotional space they once assumed would remain open. They wonder whether you will listen or simply protect yourself. They wonder whether their confession will bring healing or only reveal how much damage silence created. This fear is why they may appear even more distant just before they speak. Do not mistake the final battle for a lack of intention. Sometimes the moment before honesty looks like withdrawal because the soul is gathering strength. They are reviewing every word. They are imagining every possible response. They are trying to prepare themselves for the fact that truth does not guarantee control. They cannot decide how you will receive it. They cannot undo every moment. They cannot demand forgiveness. They cannot expect immediate trust. All they can do is finally tell you what you deserve to know from the beginning. And beloved, the truth contains more than one confession. The first confession is this: they cared far more deeply than they showed. The second confession is this: their distance was intentional, but not because they wanted to lose you. They created distance because they believed emotional space would weaken what they felt. Instead, distance made the feeling clearer. The third confession is this: they compared every attempt to move forward with the connection they had with you, and nothing felt the same. The fourth confession is this: they have spoken about you, not carelessly, but with someone they trusted, trying to understand why they could not release what remained unresolved. The fifth confession is the one they fear most, because it reveals the moment their guilt truly began. Stay close now. Something huge is waiting in the next layer. There was a decision made when you were not present. It was not necessarily a decision against you, but it affected you. Your soulmate chose to follow advice that came from someone who did not fully understand the connection. This person may have believed they were protecting your soulmate. They may have said, "Do not reveal too much. Do not become vulnerable. Wait and see what happens." Let them prove how much they care. Keep your emotions private until you are certain. At the time, your soulmate listened. They believed caution was wisdom. They believed withholding truth would keep them safe. They believed that if you truly cared, you would remain, even without clarity. But the advice created exactly what it was supposed to prevent. It made you feel unwanted. It made them feel dishonest. It turned love into a silent test you did not know you were taking. And now they regret allowing another person's fear to influence something only their heart could understand. This is not about blaming that person. Your soulmate knows the final choice belonged to them. That is why the guilt is so personal. They cannot hide behind circumstances anymore. They cannot say, "I was confused," without also admitting they chose confusion over conversation. They cannot say, "I was afraid," without admitting fear made decisions that love should have made. They see it now. They see how unfair it was to expect you to prove yourself while they concealed the very truth that would have helped you feel secure. They see how their silence may have looked like rejection. They see how their mixed signals may have caused you to distrust your own intuition. They see that you were not asking for too much. You were asking the right person for the truth at a time when that person was not yet brave enough to give it. This realization has humbled them. The P.E.